Hello, everyone. Boy, oh boy. I never really know how to start these things, and today is no different. This is going to be a tough one. Jamie, how you doing today?
Wishing I was drunk. How are you doing today?
On my way, buddy. Mm. All right. So what happened today, Jamie? Break it down for me.
The Chargers got their asses kicked.
On the road in Denver. Yep.
They were beat by a more physical team, by a team that looked hungrier, by a team that was more prepared. Stop me if you've heard this before.
I have.
It just looked like they were asleep in the first half, and the Broncos wanted it much more, and then they started to wake up a little bit, did the Chargers in the second half, but they get those two long drives in the second half, don't get any points out of them, and that was pretty much the end of the game. They just, credit to the defense. As bad as they looked in the first half, they kind of woke up. They got a couple stops in the second half.
Yeah.
They were keeping them in the game and giving the offense a chance to overcome some of their mistakes. The offense just couldn't put the ball in the end zone. They couldn't tie the game up. And when you take up 7-8 minutes with the ball and you don't score, you're shortening the game for the other team, and you're lessening your chances of winning. They just got outplayed and outcoached.
Yeah. It was a tough one, especially when you come out asleep as they did, fall down 14-0 like that, and they just couldn't catch up. Want to give a shout out to Lucas Leonard here, who said he's new to the podcast. What's up, Lucas? Welcome. I appreciate it. This, of course, is a big theme here, the most inconsistent team in the league. I don't know if they're the most inconsistent in the league, but that's what they are so far here at 7-6. I mean, that's the biggest problem. They've been inconsistent. Hot start, 4-1, fall off here, and they can't really decide what they want to be as a team. But it's pretty clear now after this week that Justin Herbert has to basically go God mode. He's got to be superhuman in order for this team to win. He's got to throw over 300 yards easy, a couple touchdowns, because if he just looks mediocre or pedestrian like he did today, they're just not going to win.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see a pattern here with experienced, savvy defensive coordinators who are head coaches putting together game plans to shut them down, zone-heavy game plans, a lot of cover two. They're just not finding the holes in the cover two defense. They're not attacking the middle of the field. They're not getting the ball to the boundaries. Herbert is holding the ball and or just immediately dumping it off underneath.
Yeah. He had a lot of hero ball today. He probably should have had 3-4 interceptions today.
He did have a lot of hero ball. The one to Cook, there are a couple at the end there. The pick to Surtain off the ball that Eckler tipped. It wasn't a great throw, but not entirely on Eckler. Mm-hmm. What a great catch by Cook in the end zone. Probably should not have thrown that ball.
No.
On the last touchdown there. And then the first interception, Surtain is lurking underneath that route. You got to get it over him if you're going to make that throw. Yeah. He throws it off balance across his body on the run. Mm-hmm. Just a bad spot.
Yeah.
Not a real good opportunity to make a play there. I don't know if he just missed Surtain or what happened there, but not a great read, not a great decision, and a pretty bad throw to boot.
Yeah.
So some questionable throws. And at the end there, he had to play some hero ball.
Oh, for sure.
He had to force the ball into some.
I'm talking about
before
that.
Spots.
Yeah. That first interception, Herbert's been really good at his depth throws, but that he just did not. It seemed like Cook had some separation towards the back of the end zone, and he underthrew him, and, Cook's like 6'5", just throw it up to him and give him more space that either it's Cook's ball to catch or it's going out of bounds. So that kind of leaving it a little early little short was a bad decision on a third down in the red zone too.
Yeah, and it's hard to get on him too much. He's playing with 2/5 of a professional offensive line today. Norton and Schofield have held their own at times this season, but they both had rough days. Calamete was awful today. It seemed like there was pressure in Herbert's face all day long. They just couldn't protect him. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for him to get the ball down the field as much as everybody wants to heave that ball down the field and get those 20, 30, 50-yard completions. You got to hold the ball to do that. And right now they can't There's no time for Herbert to hold the ball.
No.
So
You didn't
and
even
even
have
when he
time
does
to
hold the
roll
ball,
out.
nobody's getting open.
Yeah. Matthew wants to know who we can blame. Where do we start?
Everybody.
Tom Telesco? How far do we go up? I mean,
Let's
who gets
start with Telesco and just work our way down. Telesco has built a roster with no offensive line depth, although that's admittedly hard to come by in the NFL these days. No
defensive
depth at
line
corner,
depth?
no really starting ability or depth on the defensive line, no speed at wide receiver. They have bodies at running back, but there's no real depth at running back. There's not a lot of depth at linebacker. They're getting some good play out of Tranquil and White, but overall, they don't have a lot of depth at linebacker. Secondary is a big problem. The effort today, really across the board, was a big issue, especially early. That scrambling touchdown by Bridgewater, where they chase him to the sideline and like 4 guys just stand there and watch him scamper into the end zone instead of getting him out of bounds. A lot of that today. A lot of guys getting to the sideline and just being allowed to keep running.
Oh, yeah. Especially, and I know the big one was that Tavon Campbell, bad angle, bad real effort to get there. And then they end up taking out Kaiser White on the play. And then Tillery gets the roughing the passer penalty. It was
a bad call. That was a bad call. He got
on Tillery.
Tillery basically got forklifted and thrown into Bridgewater. That was a terrible call.
I don't care about all that. I'm talking about the Tavon Campbell thing. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of bad calls today. Not that had any impact on whether the Chargers won or lost today, but
no, they got what they deserved today. They were not ready to play. They did not play well at all, and they got beat. That's not on the officials.
So John Taylor's drinking. Robert Harris, it's time to take some edibles. Calm yourself a little bit. So here's been an issue today, as we saw. They went with Calamete today over Brendan Heimis. Obviously not a good call. He was bad today.
Yeah, Calamete was terrible. The penalties, just getting beat right off the snap by pass rushers on third down. He just letting guys inside of him, getting beat to the outside. He couldn't get a hand on much of anybody today. And when he did, he was holding them. So It was a really rough day for Calamete. You would have thought they would have tried something new with Heimis. I don't know if they're seeing something in practice that they don't like, but
he was so good in preseason. Man,
not at least getting a look at him in a game there where you're missing Filer and having some kind of a rotation with him and Calamete to see who deserves to be out there is pretty alarming.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Bad one. Calamete single-handedly stopped that drive in which Hopkins missed the field goal. There were 2 penalties, backed him up. He gave up the sack on third down, knocked him out to a 52-yard field goal. And Hopkins missed it. He was bad all the way around, but on one drive where the Chargers are driving, he had 2 bad penalties, gave up the sack. He was terrible today. And
it seemed like every drive they had in the second half ended on either a sack or a penalty by Calamete.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a couple questions here. Somebody asking why draft Heimis if we're not going to play the street guard. If we are playing off the street guard. Oh, off the street guards. The guards
guys
they
off the street.
sign off the street. Got it. That was a hard one to read. He was a guy signed off the street, and Heimis is the guy that they drafted for the future. But of course, he's a rookie, so they didn't give him a shot today.
And another coaching staff that won't put Quessenberry out there.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're seeing in practice, but can he really be any worse than Calamete was today? I mean,
he's got Quessenberry, just a forgotten man.
I don't know what happened to him. I think he played a lot. I think it was in 2019 he played quite a bit and was arguably their best offensive lineman. And then last year they had all those injuries. He couldn't get on the field. And now this year, with both of your starting guards out, you can't find a way to get him on the field. I don't understand.
Yeah. I will say I feel like a turning point in this game felt like when the Chargers, it's still 14-7. Herbert throws that interception. And then on that Broncos drive, there was the first down pass to Cortland Sutton on the sideline that Tavon Campbell's diving at, barely gets his fingertips on. They catch it and run. There's the third down screen pass to Javonte Williams where Drew Tranquil gets sucked inside. He takes the bait. He's got 10 easy yards on a screen pass. And then on the third down and goal, Bosa has Teddy Bridgewater dead to rights. He gets stiffed arm to the ground, and he's able to hit the tight end rolling out. I mean, there were opportunities where the Chargers could get off the field, get back into this game, and then they just drove down the field methodically. There was that missed tackle by Tavon Campbell on that drive. I mean, that was a chance where they could have put their hooks in a little bit like they did early in the second half, but then they just let them convert on those third downs. And then the third down touchdown came, which they probably would have kicked the field goal at that point, I assume, to make it a 2-score game, maybe there. But that drive really kind of turned it because then they scored. Then there was the pick six. I mean, it all just went downhill after that.
I mean, it really, for me, the game was, even though it was still a close game, the game was really over when they opened that third quarter with a 7-minute drive and didn't get points out of it.
Yeah, this field goal.
That really flipped the momentum. And at that point, you're kind of wondering if they're going to be able to get in the end zone because they're having to work so hard to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. It's just taking so long. It just seems so far away, even at 14-7, that when they didn't get any points out of that first drive to start the second half, they were in some trouble. You could kind of feel the air come out of that team on the sideline, and it was kind of over at that point. But that drive didn't help. You got to know they're throwing a screen pass on 3rd and long. Bridgewater isn't throwing that ball down the field. Not ready for it. Campbell on Sutton on 3rd down, less than ideal there. You'd probably like to see Michael Davis over there. He's your best corner at this point. So some matchup issues there, some game planning issues. They just, to not be ready for that screen pass in that situation where you got to figure they're looking to play it safe, pick up as many yards as they can and punt the ball. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Natalie here talking about Jerry Tillery, who we got to get back to talking about. He was off the team last week on the COVID list, and now he's back on. And is it any wonder that the run defense struggled so mightily in the first half?
God, he's so bad. So bad. He's just bouncing off of running backs. He's getting driven back into the linebackers. Hopefully they saw enough from him versus what those guys did last week to start making some changes. But for Tillery to just be run right back out there with as well as they played up front last week is really concerning. And you got to wonder, is that a Staley decision or is that being forced on him at this point? Because you know what you've got in Tillery. You're 2.5 years in.
Mm-hmm.
You've got plenty of tape to know who he is and what he is. And that is not a good football player at this point. It was a bad first-round pick. It was something that we did not like at all when they made it. And they just keep going back to him like they're waiting for something to happen that isn't there. Time to start making some of those changes.
Yeah. Natalie talks about accountability, and there has to be at some point. Kelemete, one of them. Jerry Tillery here. I mean, Kelemete, you kind of give a pass to an extent because it's his first time starting and with his team. And so you can give him a little bit of a pass there. And, maybe the nerves got to him or he's just not good. But with Tillery, with as long as he's been with this team and just how bad he's been, and with as bad as this run defense is, it gets worse with him on the field. So there has to be some kind of accountability. At this point, he's a 3rd down pass rusher in my mind as an interior guy.
Is he even a 3rd down pass rusher?
Well, if you need some speed on the inside on a 3rd and long, I think he's the guy you get in there. He's been okay. Why
wouldn't you just put Bosa there and have Fackrell and Nwosu outside?
How many people are you putting on the field? There's got to be a 4th guy on the line, right? Who's the 4th guy?
Jones.
Oh, okay. Well, you could do that too, but he's going to earn at least like a handful of snaps probably at this point.
What has he earned?
He's made enough.
He's earned anything?
Why am I having to defend Jerry Tillery?
You're defending him. I'm just asking. Explain.
No,
what has he earned?
He has earned 5 to 10 snaps a game. I think he's earned a bottom of the depth chart rotational interior defensive line snaps at this point. I don't think you completely take him off the roster and out of the lineup. but I think he's earned 5 to 10 snaps a game. That's
Okay.
got to be fair.
If
You
you
don't
say
think he's
so.
made enough? I think he's made enough plays in the backfield on quarterbacks. How many sacks does he have this year? A couple, right? He
I
seems
don't
like a
know.
better pass rusher than he is a run defender, which is a fact.
Not saying a
So
whole lot.
no, but but if you can get him on third down, I can't believe how this has turned. How did I don't like Jerry Tillery. I don't want
Garrett
to
is
like
the Jerry Tillery apologist. Are we all seeing this?
this
He
is
is apologizing for
bullshit.
Jerry Tillery.
I am not
Everybody get him now.
apologizing for Jerry Tillery is saying 5 to 10 snaps a game as a rotational defensive lineman. Come on. Lucas wanted to know about Brian Balaga, who still is recovering from surgery. They haven't made a decision on him yet this season. And then Denny third, what are you doing with the running backs in general? Active, inactive usage. It's a mess behind Eckler. It's what is going on there? Why elevate Bradwell? And then he had like 5 snaps today, 6 snaps.
Another thing I can't explain. I mean, they get him on the field. You figure maybe they're going to use him in short yardage situations as the power back against a physical defense. That didn't happen. Did he even have a carry today? I know they threw to him once.
All I can remember is Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, I don't remember Bradwell having a carry. Yeah, I can't explain it. I mean, carrying 4 running backs, that's the running back equivalent of carrying 3 quarterbacks. You're wasting a roster spot at that point. And Justin Jackson was active, and he didn't even play today, I don't think. Was he on the field today?
I didn't see him. No, he didn't get a single carry today. Bradwell didn't. And I didn't see Justin Jackson. Justin Jackson didn't get a single target or carry today. So Joshua Kelly got 1 carry today, and that's the only running back that got a carry today, not named Austin Eckler.
And they also threw their slowest, least elusive running back a screen.
Yes.
Always a genius decision.
Yep. He didn't catch it. Bradwell, you're talking about Joshua Kelly, who 2 catches, 15 yards. Bradwell had 1 target, 0 catches. And we know about Eckler. But yeah, it's a mess. And they don't know what they're doing behind Austin Eckler. I don't understand what Bradwell does for you.
Yeah.
With the way they implemented him today, at least.
I mean, you would think they're going to use him as a power back. Maybe looking to give him 5 to 10 carries a game just to keep Eckler fresh. But if you're looking to throw, I mean, it looked like they drew a pass up for him on the first play of the second half, and he dropped it. And then he was hardly on the field after that. Then it was Kelly's turn. So they don't really have anybody stepping up to take that RB2 role right now.
No.
And they just seem to be kind of throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks, and none of it's sticking right now.
Not yet. Let's see. Jay Cameron, can we really be upset with the Chargers defense today after seeing our offense? Can't they both be true?
They can both be bad. they were both bad. I mean, I said earlier, the defense was bad in the first half.
Yes.
Particularly that 3rd and goal run for the touchdown from the 9-yard line, where they had like a 10-yard wide split in the middle of the defensive line, which is
lame.
I think they only had 2 down linemen and 1 linebacker in the middle of the field. I don't know how you draw that up and think that works, but it didn't work. So hopefully they burn that shit, because that's a bad call. I don't even know what the play call was, but it was a bad call. But I thought the defense settled down for as long as they could in the second half. They were kind of done after that last turnover, and they were put in some bad spots. But they stopped the run a little bit better in the second half. They got a couple 3-and-outs. They were able to give the defense or the offense a chance to get back in the game. The offense just couldn't get it done.
Oscar talking about how there were 2 fumbles that were not recovered. It was the indication of the type of game. Wasn't that terrible? Derwin's was a forward pass, which should have been looked like a sack fumble at first, and then Locke fumbles it forward for a first down. That was some bad luck early on.
I mean, the one with Derwin, his arm came forward.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a fumble. It wasn't, but it looked like it. Yeah.
Yeah, they got it right. I guess you could maybe argue that the hit made the arm come forward, but the arm came forward. So that's an incomplete pass. The frustrating one was the one where Bosa gets the sack and forces the strip, and they can't fall on it, and it goes 5 yards upfield for a first down.
Yeah. All right, Payway. He wants to know do you all think Tom Telesco and Spanos is controlling the personnel decisions? Hitting
I
stuff today.
Because I want to root for Brandon Staley, I hope they're controlling the personnel decisions. I mean, look, the owner's son is the man. He everybody answers to him in the personnel department. Telesco answers to him. So they are making the personnel decisions. Staley might have some input here and there, but at the end of the day, he answers to them. So, and we don't know to what degree they're listening to him. And my guess is, based on Tillery still being on the field, based on what's going on with the running backs and some other things, I would feel pretty confident saying that at least right now, most of those decisions are being made by Telesco and Spanos.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I want to believe.
Yep. I think that was a lot of the reason why Kenneth Murray was being used early on. That whole KJ Hill debacle early on in that season. I think that has a lot of the Spanos Telesco written all over it. When you see these high draft picks not being the less talented player at their position, still getting playing time over the more talented players, I think it's a pretty good indication that Telesco is trying to save face a little bit with his draft picks, and Spanos obviously trying to do the same.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Let's see. So Thomas Z says Telesco just said in his press conference that they didn't play Brandon Heimis because he doesn't have quote unquote experience, but like how he is going to get any if you don't play him. Yeah, how do you get playing time if you don't play?
How do you get experience if you can't get on the field?
Yeah, exactly.
And
good question, Thomas.
Calamete has so much experience. I mean, I know he's been in as the extra offensive lineman a few times, but it's not like he has a wealth of experience in this offense. So I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's backwards logic, right? You need him to get experience, trust him, but you won't put him on the field to give him the experience. So is he ever going to get on the field? What did you draft him for? It just doesn't make any sense.
No. Huge ass. Do you think there will ever eventually be a power struggle between Telesco and Staley?
I don't think Telesco ever wanted to fire Anthony Lynn. And I think just based on the way he was reacting when they were going through the interview process and when they first hired Staley, I think Telesco might be nearing the end if they don't have success. I don't know how much longer he'll be here. This is year 9, I think, right? Year 9.
Yeah. He
8 or
year
9.
He's been here 8. Yeah. At the end of the season, it'll be a complete 9 years.
So he's in year 9. They've won 2 playoff games in 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't made it out of the second round of the playoffs. No AFC championship. And they haven't won the division, I don't believe, under him. Have they?
No.
So what really has he accomplished? And if you're looking at the roster and you're saying, well, we lack depth on the offensive line, we lack talent and depth on the defensive line, we lack depth at cornerback, we lack speed at wide receiver, who does that fall on? They're not going to fire John Spanos. So at the end of the day, it falls on Tom Telesco. So my guess is I don't think Telesco is going to be around too much longer. I think once they look at the season as a whole and they realize where they were short and that they've been short in these positions really since Tom Telesco got here, they still lack the quality depth to be effective on special teams. They're not good enough in the trenches to win consistently against physical teams. These are all glaring issues with Tom Telesco and the way he's built the roster. And I think, like I said, they're not going to fire John Spanos. So if they decide the roster is not sufficient and they're going to take it in a different direction under Staley, I think it only makes sense that they would fire Telesco. I think the concern, though, is if they fire Telesco, what's to stop them from just making John Spanos the GM?
The GM, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people will point to all the good players he's drafted since then, but you got to think about how many have fallen into his lap. They were going to draft Tua if he was available. If Herbert and Tua were on the board, they're going to draft Tua. That is a fact. Derwin James fell into his lap. Joey Bosa fell into his lap. I mean, you can just kind of fall into those sometimes. And so, honestly, I mean, what Jamie's saying is true. Where we're talking about how they're inconsistent, they lack depth and important positions. How they haven't been good at these positions forever, for almost a decade now. That's on Tom Telesco. So,
I mean, really, they had the offensive line issues midway through Norv's tenure here.
Yeah,
So
and they haven't fixed
same
it.
thing on the defensive line. I mean, they were playing Jacques Cesaire at defensive tackle, Cam Thomas
Yep.
At defensive tackle
Yep.
when Norv was here. So these are long-term issues that are coming about based on the way that they are choosing to build their roster. And at least on the surface, from the outside looking in, Telesco is the one building the roster. I think Spanos has his hand in a lot of this, but if they continue to have these problems, and when Telesco first got here, the first thing he said was, "I'm going to fix the offensive line." Well, it took him 9 years to have a halfway decent offensive line. Has he really fixed it? Defensive line outside of Bosa really hasn't been addressed. I mean, and Tillery, I guess. They haven't done much to address the defensive line. So
no.
These are all long-term recurring issues under Tom Spanos. Tom Telesco.
They're
They
the
kind
same.
of bleed together after a while. And I would say, they're not going to fire John. So
yeah,
Tom would be the one to go.
So do you think, as Mike is saying here, is Tillery the worst first-round pick in the last 10 years? Like in the NFL?
In the NFL?
Come on, Jamie. That can't be right.
10 years. Let's see.
Oh, boy. I'm going to move on.
Johnny Manziel was a first-round pick.
That's worse, yes.
So then I guess the answer is no.
Tom Wavy says, I got a report for a drug test for defending Jerry Tillery. So I'll have to do that on Monday for sure. And Catch Camera. How much further is Joe Lombardi's last name going to take him? Are you out on Lombardi from this game? Feels like a lot of people. I think a lot of people are taking some hits today. Staley's taking hits. Telesco's taking hits. Lombardi.
I mean, they're a week removed from scoring 41 points.
Yeah.
A game plan that we all agreed was basically perfect outside of like 2 possessions. So am I all the way out on Joe Lombardi? I don't know that I'm all the way out on Joe Lombardi, especially considering he's got Calamete playing left guard, Schofield playing right guard, and Norton playing right tackle. They had 2 offensive linemen in that game for the entire game. So
Slater and
Lindsley. Out on Lombardi? No, but I think there are definitely concerns. Okay. I think, they're really struggling with getting Herbert in a rhythm against zone heavy defenses.
Yep.
And I think they need to figure out ways that they can help him. They've had a hard time getting Eckler involved in the screen game. And it seems like when Eckler is involved in the passing game, it's either in the flats or on the Texas route. There's not a whole lot of variation to how the kinds of routes that Eckler is running. And, there are times where he's got a good feel for getting the tight ends involved. And there are times like today where it seems like there's no chance of getting them involved. I think the criticism about not throwing the ball deep, I think especially today, a lot of that was really driven by the offensive line. Not to make excuses for him, because I think there were calls they could have made probably that were better. And I haven't rewatched the game, so I haven't seen it from a bird's eye view to see what kind of calls he was playing, what kind of calls he was making. I'm sure he was trying to get the ball down the field, but they have a lot of issues finding the middle of the field and finding the boundaries against cover 2 defense. And the Broncos played a lot of cover 2 today. They should be comfortable with it because they practice against it so much. And that is a bit concerning. But they've got a quarterback in year 2. He's got 26 starts under his belt. He looks good in most of them. He's had 4 bad starts. I think some of the stuff will come. But there are areas where Lombardi can improve for sure. I'm not sure firing him midseason is the answer. Maybe Staley needs to get more involved in the game planning. They need to take some more chances downfield to loosen things up, but they lack speed and they didn't have much of an offensive line today. So they were kind of limited in terms of what they could call.
Yeah, this was this was concerning for me only because this happened against New England, and they said afterwards like, oh, we weren't expecting a lot of cover 2, cover 3 zone heavy schemes, so they kind of caught us off guard a little bit. And I guess, I mean, I thought they could have made, I mean, obviously they could have made adjustments after halftime when they saw it, but they didn't. And then to see it again and then be so fooled by it again is just strange. I mean, it just seems like, is this the script to beat the Chargers? If you run cover 2, cover 3, if you're in zone heavy, that you can get her after him, if you can pressure Herbert a little bit and get after this offensive line. I mean, that might be the case, but I just don't know why the Chargers haven't figured out their cover 2, cover 3 beaters. Like, they don't have their plays to kind of get defenses back into man and try to win their matchups, and they haven't been able to do that. And it's concerning because it's happened more than once now.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of success against cover 3 last week, picking up some chunk yards against cover 3. That's a lot easier to beat with the crossers. Those cover 2s, the cover 2 with the deep safeties is giving them some major issues. And they had a couple of big throws from Herbert that split the safeties last week, but we just didn't see as much of that this week. Granted, the safety play is better with Justin Simmons back there, but they were also missing Kareem Jackson this week. They should have been able to get some plays between the safeties in the middle of the field there against cover 2, and they just couldn't find it. I don't know if that was a function of protection or guys not getting open or what, but there weren't a lot of leaks.
Yeah, let's see. I was just going through the questions here. We kind of talked about this. Do you think veteran defensive coordinators are the issue? Baltimore, New England, Minnesota, now Denver seem to be the games where they struggled the most. Seems like it.
I think what's given them the most problems, in addition to the veteran defensive coordinators, is just good secondary play. They make their big plays against defenses that are blowing coverages in the back end, defenses that lose their leverage, defenses that jump a route and let somebody break deep. That's where Mike has been beating people. Last week on the game-winning touchdown, he probably should not have been open, but the safety and the corner on the outside both broke on Keenan in the middle of the field looking for the hot route on the nickel blitz and just forgot about Mike. That's not Mike beating people. That's just the scheme working for one, and the corner and the safety just missing their assignment. And there's been a lot of that this year. And when they don't get that, they don't get the big plays because they lack the speed. So people have the roof on top of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their eyes on the quarterback, and they're jumping everything short, and they're challenging the Chargers to throw it deep. And for whatever reason, Herbert isn't comfortable throwing into that zone coverage deep. And they're just sitting on that stuff and making them work their way down the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to see that they were going to come out and cover 2. I mean, this isn't a surprise to anybody. I just seemed like they were so unprepared for it today. I mean, this is Vic Fangio's stamp. This is what Staley has worked his scheme off of. So I just don't see why it was such a struggle today. I get offensive line was an issue, and speed's an issue too, but I mean, you got a game plan for that type of stuff, and they just didn't today. And then obviously falling asleep and giving up 14 points early on in that game didn't help either.
Yeah, the slow start just killed them.
Yeah,
on both sides of the ball. Which
is what Victor is talking about here. And he says, I remember Jamie tweeting, this game can get really bad, something like that. Well, thanks, Jamie. It got really bad. And then let's see. Just going through questions here. If you guys got a bunch of questions, feel free, because I think this is going to be like a extended version of a Q&A here, a little therapy session here, and we're gonna just answer a bunch of questions. Lucas Leonard, would you rather have Telesco or John Spanos?
I don't want to answer that.
Okay.
I don't like either option.
No comment, huh?
Man, that's like, would you rather shoot yourself with your left hand or your right hand? I guess Telesco, because I think John Spanos is a moron, but I don't know.
See, but if I shot myself with my right hand, I'd definitely make it. I'm not left-handed, so I don't know. Maybe
You
I
might miss.
Yeah, maybe. Do you think Spanos will ever sell the team? Pay my ass. I sure hope so, but I don't think he will.
No, why would he?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Let's see. Do you think the roster at hand, they should be a DVOA of top 5 offense?
See, this is not going to be a popular answer, but I know they have playmakers, but I don't think their playmakers are at the level that everybody continues to say that they're at. Keenan is great, short, intermediate, running routes, getting open in the middle of the field. He's not going to hurt anybody deep. I don't remember the last time he broke a tackle. Every once in a while, he'll make somebody miss, but there's not a lot of yak there for him. And like I said, he's not going to take the top off the defense. Mike runs like 4 routes. He is a 50-50 guy who catches 40% of his 50-50 balls. So what's he really good at the end of the day? I know people love him and they want to see him break out and be this monster Julio Jones type, DK Metcalf type receiver.
Yep.
That's just not who he is. He's not that fast. He's not a great route runner. The hands aren't that great. I don't think he is the player that everybody wants him to be. I think he surprised people in the role that he was in early in the season. Defenses have adjusted, and now the Chargers are having a hard time adjusting and finding a way to get him open consistently because he can't get himself open. Eckler's a stud. I love Eckler. I think he's great in the middle of the field. The hands have been an issue this year. I think he's a talented runner. I think he and Keenan, Eckler's probably their best playmaker. Keenan is probably number 2, just in terms of Eckler's versatility, although they don't use him that way. And they don't know how to use the tight ends that they have, not consistently anyway. So I don't think the skill players are what everybody thinks they are. The offensive line was good at the beginning of the year, but right now with 2 healthy quality offensive linemen, that's not a great group. I'm not sure their skill players support a top 5 DVOA offense. I don't think they have the speed and the explosiveness on the outside. I don't think they've ever had it, and it's too easy to suffocate them with press coverage and zone defense. They just struggle.
Yeah, and I feel like Justin Herbert isn't consistent enough to get them top 5. He won't be superhuman enough to get them to top 5.
I think if they had a legitimate deep threat,
it
would be a lot easier for him to be more consistent.
For sure.
Because they might have more confidence taking those deep shots. But
you're in dreamland right now.
Yeah, they don't
have one of those. Yeah.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's his fault that he's I don't think it's Herbert. It's not entirely Herbert's fault that he's struggling. Now, there are areas that he can improve in.
Yeah.
I think those post-snap reads need to improve quite a bit. The willingness to throw the ball into voids, understand where the voids are and throw the ball there against cover 2 in particular, is somewhere where he needs to anticipate those holds and make those throws much more consistently than he has, especially this year. But I don't think they have the weapons that people think they have.
Yeah. All right. So John's asking, they're 7-6. They're still in the hunt. Do the Chargers make the playoffs this year?
I still think they'll probably sneak in as a wild card. I think they've got a shot at doing that. There's enough soft tissue left on the schedule, I think, that they can do some damage. I think, they can certainly beat the Giants. I think they can beat Houston. I think on a good day, they can beat either Denver or the Raiders. I know they can beat the Raiders again.
Yeah.
Denver always gives them trouble because they're so physical up front. Those physical teams are going to give them fits, but I think if they don't hurt themselves, they can beat Denver. KC is going to give them fits, I think. And I think Cincinnati could be really ugly next week. But I could easily see them winning 4 more games, maybe 5 with a couple of breaks and sneaking in as a wild card. But I don't think they're going to win the division.
No, I think the Chiefs end up running away with it. I think they had a chance early on, but Chiefs have closed that gap, and I think they're going to win the division. I think the Chargers have a good enough team and a soft enough schedule to sneak into a wild card spot. So I believe I agree with you there. But I do think after next week they're going to be 6-6, and they got some ground to make up. That Cincy team is so hot right now. They put up 40 something points today.
They have so many playmakers too on the outside. They're going to be a tough cover if the Chargers don't have Asante Samuel back next week.
Yeah,
and they're trying to cover Chase with
Tavon
Michael
Campbell
Davis and Tavon Campbell and Chris Harris Jr. It's going to be a rough day.
Yeah,
but I don't know if they can handle Joe Mixon either,
who had 2 touchdowns and 50 yards today. 150
something
plus
crazy
yards.
like that. I think he had 100 yards at halftime.
Yeah. All right. Just going through these questions here. What year would you have fired Tom Telesco?
I would have probably fired him. I would have fired him with Lynn, if not sooner.
Yeah, which would have been last year. I would not given him a third head coach hire. No way.
I wouldn't have had him
very
for a third coach hire. Yeah.
No.
I think you could have made an argument for firing him after McCoy.
But
definitely after Lynn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so earliest after McCoy, at the latest after Lynn, for sure. I would have never let him in the room. Staley was the right hire. I would have never let him there. I would have started a completely clean slate.
I think he was. I believe he was quoted as saying that all of the Spanoses were heavily involved in the Staley hire. So I don't know how much say Telesco had in that. And I mean, I just keep thinking back to the press conferences while they were going through the process of hiring a new coach, and even like right after they fired Lynn, and he just seemed so dejected about firing Lynn and about having to find a new coach that I think he should have been gone after Lynn.
At the latest.
But Herbert bought him time. That's the only reason he's still here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Great work as always, guys. Thanks, Matt. I don't know if you're new or not, but thank you. How concerned are you guys with the Chargers' only real improvement over the course of the season is in the kick return game? Coaching is so much about adjustments. Do you believe that, Jamie? It's all special teams is the only way. The returner game is the only thing they've improved on.
I think we've seen improvement in some of the players that have struggled under previous coaching staffs, like individual player improvements. Tranquil's been great when he's been on the field. White's been great.
White, of course. Yeah.
Kaiser White's been amazing.
I think Nwosu has made a pretty big leap that nobody's really talking about this year. I think
the last couple weeks, especially, he's been really good the last couple weeks.
Yep.
Even as much as we bagged on him, I think Justin Jones has been pretty good the last couple weeks too. So you're starting to see some individual improvement. I think the question for me really is the lack of adjustments to the scheme, understanding that you're daring people to run the ball when you can't stop it. That concerns me, and I think the lack of adjustments to keep Herbert consistent week to week and get Eckler involved in the screen game and do more things to create easier opportunities to move the ball. I think that's a little concerning. But I think in a lot of ways, like I said, I don't think the roster is as good as people think it is. And I think their ability to make adjustments and the ability of the players that they're forced to put in certain positions to execute, even when they do make adjustments, is very limited. This is not a great roster.
No, and we've talked about it. If you've listened to this podcast, we've talked about these issues, and they just keep continuing to happen, and they haven't filled it. I think another thing that's concerning is the fact that they had a chance at the trade deadline to really pull ahead of Kansas City here. And they could have helped out in that run game. If they were going to dare teams to run the ball, like we've talked about and Jamie just alluded to, if you're going to dare teams to run the ball and be so bad at stopping the run, you might as well get somebody who can help out to help stop the run. And they didn't do any of that at the trade deadline, which they should have. This window for Justin Herbert is so small in this rookie contract that I know everybody keeps talking about next year, but they had a pretty big gap, a game or two on Kansas City. They had beat them in their home stadium, and they could have helped pull away by improving this defense, by making a trade, which, as you saw, a lot of it is like day 3 picks. It was like nothing serious. They could have done something to help this team, and they didn't, and just decided we're good enough where we're at. They're not good enough. And we're going to see it throughout this year. And the fact that they didn't look at that, go, hey, listen, our quarterback only has this small window before we got to pay him a ton of money, and he's going to deserve it. Not that he doesn't deserve it, but they got a lot of money they can invest on a defensive line that can stop the run if you're going to dare teams to run the ball. So that is another concerning area. And I know, it's a lot about adjustments. And I think from time to time we have seen some adjustments. It's not been consistent enough, but I think at times we've seen where they've got the tight ends involved on some mismatches. They've got Austin Eckler open in space at times, but never consistent enough. And so I think the inconsistency is the biggest issue.
Yeah, I agree. The inconsistency is a big issue.
So John wants to say, can we talk about how good Derwin is? That man is a life changer. He was so good today. And by the way, I just want to shout out to Jamie Hoyle here. Let me do it first before you start pointing at yourself. Let me compliment you before you start celebrating. Jamie, on our preview podcast to talk about this game, you said, I just have a feeling Derwin James is going to have a big game. This just feels like a big Derwin James game. And it was. And he is a life changer, and he was amazing today.
He was.
So good on you, Jamie.
Thank you very much. At least I got that much right about my prediction for the game.
Yeah, we both got the win-loss one wrong because we both thought the Chargers would win this one. Let's see. We're going to keep moving on here. Oh, boy. There's a bunch of questions here. What are your expectations for the rest of the year? I can't decide whether to give up on them or keep hoping.
Well, like I said, I think they're probably going to sneak in to the wild card with
same here.
Somewhere around 10 or 11 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's ready to bail on the season yet, but I think proper expectations for any such wild card berth should be put in place. Yep. We've seen what they look like against physical teams, against quality defenses. It probably won't be a very long playoff run, but I think there's a chance they at least sneak in there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's on paper, but they got a really soft schedule going forward. So do not give up on them yet. I haven't lost hope, Cole, so you shouldn't either. Armand wants to know, and I knew this was coming. Damn it. Garrett, what's your view on Brandon Staley currently? Asking because I know you responded on Twitter saying Staley was overrated. Now, what I was responding to is somebody had said that Staley is overrated. And I just don't feel like that's the truth. I feel like Brandon Staley is downright a magician at this point to get 7 wins out of this roster on paper. This is not a great team on roster. This is a 500 team. I know they're a game above, but they flashed dominance. Justin Herbert looked like a rookie of the year or a NFL MVP candidate early on. He looked like a coach of the year candidate early on. I don't see how this team is anywhere near 7 wins without Brandon Staley. With Anthony Lynn, this is a 3 or 4 win team. I just think that Brandon Staley, with his aggressive nature early on in the season, and even late in the season, even though it didn't work out today, his aggressiveness had helped him win games. Some of his adjustments early on helped them win games. And I think a lot of that fell on Brandon Staley in-game decisions, which is why they were 4-1. So to go out there while they're getting their ass kicked in Denver, where they fell flat, and say that Brandon Staley is overrated, quite frankly, I think is bullshit. Is he great? No, he's not the coach of the year anymore. He was at that point when they were 4-1, but there's the thought that he's overrated is nonsense. I don't believe that this team is all that good. I don't think they're 7 wins good, but they somehow got 7 wins out of this roster, and they are pretty close to getting, and I know I'm talking with my hands now.
No, that's not what they're 6-5, dude.
Oh, what did I say? 7-6?
You said 7-6.
Oh, whatever. 6-5. Excuse me. Thank you, Jamie. Oh, you're getting me to stop? Is that what that was? Because I was flashing my hands a lot, and I thought you were mocking me.
Oh, I do that too.
6-5. Excuse me. They're 1 game above 500, and I just do not think that the Chargers are good enough to win that much games. And I know Justin Herbert's a good player, but I just think Staley is nowhere near overrated. And the comment was, hey, listen, Brandon Staley is overrated, but the team is in the right direction and he's doing good. And there's all these compliments after it. And it's like, you can't cover up the phrase overrated with compliments after it. You shit on Staley and say he's not that good, he's overrated, and then say, but he's got him in the right direction. And you can't if you're saying he's overrated, stick with it. He's either good or he's not. You like him as a coach or you don't. I don't believe he's overrated. And I think that whole comment was bullshit today. And I think it felt like it was piling on in a bad moment. Do you, Jamie, after I said that, believe Staley, and you can agree, disagree, is overrated at this point? I'd also like to say it's way too early to be saying a coach is overrated in the middle of the season. How are we making those types of decisions? How are we doing that now? That makes no sense. But go ahead.
I would say overrated is strong, but I think it's fair, like you mentioned, to question some things, and I think we have seen some chinks in the armor. There are good things and there are bad things, and I think you could definitely make the argument that they are where they are right now at 6-5 because of Brandon Staley. And I tend to agree with you. If Lynn was here, they'd probably be a 3 or 4 win team just because Lynn is awful. But, we talked about the lack of adjusting the defensive scheme where he's challenging people to run the ball into the biggest weakness of the defense. They haven't been able to keep Herbert consistent week to week, and they don't seem to be helping him with those zone defense reads. So I think there are certainly areas where you want to keep monitoring for the rest of the season and in next year and see how these things develop. But to say he's overrated, I think, is a stretch. I think they've won games because of his fourth down calls. They've won games because of his willingness to take chances where other teams wouldn't. And that's all him. So I think they're where they are because of him. But I do think there are areas where he can improve, and you expect that. He's a first-year head coach.
Yeah. So hold on. I was just getting to what people had to say about it. Hold on a second. Sorry, I just missed it. Okay. Tom Wavy here. He was literally advertised as the guy who's going to modernize NFL defenses. Have we honestly seen that? He is a first-year head coach. He does not have the talent to modernize NFL defenses. And we are, as everybody pointed out in the chat, 6 wins, not 7, 6 wins on the season. We are halfway through the year. So I'm not going to say that he's a revolutionary defensive mind yet, but I won't say that he's overrated. And I was just trying to convey that there is a middle ground here. He is not the greatest coach of all time. He's not overrated. He's not a terrible head coach, but he's got a lot of great wins because of his in-game adjustments early on in the season, his aggressiveness. He made some changes with the roster, which kick returner, the kicking game, which has improved this team for the better. And so I think he is a good head coach with room for improvement. He's not a revolutionary. He is not overrated, but he's somewhere in the middle. That's all I was trying to get out.
And I would say I would challenge anybody, and I'll challenge Tom here, to tell me how you expect Brandon Staley to revolutionize or modernize NFL defenses with
Jerry Tillery,
Christian Covington, Jerry Tillery.
Hey, Jerry Tillery's not bad.
Tavon Campbell, Chris Harris Jr., and all these guys.
Did you say Tavon Campbell?
I said Tavon Campbell.
Okay.
Out there failing to execute week to week, game to game, play to play. He can only do so much. He's not a miracle worker.
Yep.
I think if they allow him to bring in the personnel he wants to bring in, and he's able to run the scheme he wants to run with people who can actually execute it, I think we'll see things start to change. But right now, he does not have the personnel to run the defensive scheme he wants to run. Mm-hmm. And it might be fair to start questioning whether or not he's being a little bit too loyal to Joe Lombardi. And those are areas where I think we need to see some improvement. But when you talk about making adjustments, he's made personnel adjustments. You talked about the kicking game. You talked about the kick return game.
Mm-hmm.
He got Kaiser White on the field, or Drew Tranquil on the field, when it was very clear that Kenneth Murray should not be out there. Kenneth Murray came back. He's pretty much been on the bench for the most part since he came back, because the two best linebackers are Tranquil and White. They recognize that. They made the change.
Yeah.
Jalen
Guyton early on.
Jalen Guyton early on. They've kind of phased him out a little bit. We're starting to see more and more of Joshua Palmer. So there, you can see evidence of them making changes. Last week, I would have hoped it would have carried over to this week, but last week with the defensive line, calling up those Gaziano and Fehoko and Merrill and getting them in the game, and even Anthony Brown, and getting them in the game and seeing how well they played. You would have hoped that would have carried over more to this week. I'm sure they wanted to get another look at Tillery. Hopefully we will start to see those snaps flip a little bit and see guys like Gaziano and Fehoko and Merrill play a little bit more. And they will continue to work out how those snaps are being distributed. And then we need to see some change on the offensive line. If Filer can't play this week, you'd hope that we see Heimis out there. So there are still things he can do to help the team personnel-wise, but his hands are pretty well tied in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with that, I think we are done here. We did 56 minutes, and we appreciate all of you for coming on here on a real tough loss in Denver. Team is in second place now, full game behind the Kansas City Chiefs, with a lot of games to go. So thanks everybody for tuning in to After Hours. I'm at Garrett Sisti. You see Jamie's at Lightning_round. Thank you everybody for coming in. We appreciate you. We really, really, really do. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.